What's going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadskii, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video, and today we're going to be having a look at some Pirate Rumble action. We're going to be using some of these New Year Legend characters, and the one that we're going to be covering today is actually the character that I feel is like kind of the weakest in the normal batch characters, like in terms of normal content, being Sabo. And Sabo has honestly surprised me. He has actually been a lot better than I gave him credit for. Especially after initial readings of his Rumble abilities. I really wasn't that excited about this guy, but after actually taking him on in Grand Party and seeing what he did against me, it got me kind of excited to trial him out. So I ended up using him in today's video, and we're going to show a various amount of clips up against some of the challenge difficulty bosses, and just showing exactly what he can do. In terms of what he actually does, you can see that his Rumble ability, it gives buffs to both Int and Cerebral teammates, giving them 6 attack, 6 defense, and 6 speed, so pretty good buffs across the board. And then he also gives himself a level 10 shield, so he's going to be pretty tanky, at least initially in the first parts of the battle, so it takes a while for him to actually get knocked out. And then also for the first 40 seconds of a battle, he gives himself level 10 speed and level 5 special CT, which is really strong, allowing him to launch his special very, very quickly. And if you have a look at his special ability here, at level 10 at a 28 CT, which is pretty respectable, it's the same kind of CT as what S-Hawk is, he gives Int and Cerebral characters 8 attack, and level 5 special CT increase and level 10 blowaway increase, all for 20 seconds. So getting a level 5 CT increase for that 20-second period, as well as like having a pretty respectable CT, allowing his special to launch over and over again in a battle, is a really big deal. And then on top of that, I may have just overlooked this when I did his initial read, but he also targets one enemy with high defense for 2.2 times damage that ignores their defense. So that's incredible. Obviously, if you're up against like a really tanky enemy, he just does a ton of damage to that enemy through their defense. And then also, if his special is launched in the first 40 seconds, he gives one of your teammates, not including himself, with high CT, guaranteed haste. So it allows, like, if he goes first and he uses his special ability, which he was going to be able to use it within the first 40 seconds, no doubt, then he allows one of your other characters to be hasted to the top of the order that has high CT. So having a look at the squad that we have to kind of support what Sabo's doing, well, Sabo's doing the supporting, and we're not really trying to support what Sabo does. It's more of like, what is Sabo doing to help out the rest of the squad? So of course, we're using an Int team here, and we're going to be using 10th Anniversary Luffy because he's just incredible. We are also using S-Hawk because if you're using an Int team, you might as well use S-Hawk. And then we are also using Gecko Moria. I opted to use Bonnie here in the front lines because it does help reduce the enemy defense, and it actually worked out really well. However, you could potentially try and run something else. Bonnie felt pretty good though as a pretty good Sugafest exclusive slot here, being able to debuff the enemies, reverse their special CT, all that good stuff. But that Rumble ability of -5 defense is a big deal. And then Int have very good characters for like the Rumble section in terms of the Rumble characters, the 20 cost units. So we're using Shiki, Dory, and Broggy as our bench, but again, there's like so many different units you could be using. Just the fact that Slashes can be a bit of a threat in terms of their offense. Like if in the early game they come out, launch a bunch of specials, like if you're up against opposing S-Hawks, Roger Newgate, etc., if your characters get knocked out, you can have Shiki come in and do a ton of damage towards them. He's a really, really big threat towards opposing Slashes, so he's a really, really good pickup. But yeah, this actually surprisingly worked really, really well. So let's go ahead and jump in against a various amount of these challenge difficulty bosses and just see how the team is able to perform against these bosses. So this first little setup here is going to be up against the York Int team. This is actually the first time that I had actually gone up against it, and, well, not the first time I've gone up against it, but this is my first succeeding victory against this one. This was actually a really, really tough battle, mainly due to the fact that the Vegapunk characters have fantastic synergy, and Atlas specifically can just do so much damage. They have really annoying utility effects. They've got Chopper, which can provide a lot of healing, and then their bench Yamato is so annoying, and they've got, like, just very annoying characters to deal with stupid utility and stuff like that. But have a look at this. Characters are about to launch their special really quick. He go with Sabo here, and the fact that when he launches his special, he does a ton of damage through defense. He hasted Bonnie to the top of the order, which is so clutch, allowing her to reverse the specials of some of our opponents so they aren't able to launch their specials as fast. So that's like a huge clutch thing that probably was one of the keys to the victory here, being able to provide so much value there, not only doing a ton of damage towards York, which can just provide a lot of the counter stuff, very similar to En Mizoro on the free spirit squads. And then you got Luffy, who's also ready to come in and do a ton of damage against them, which is like super clutch, especially if Luffy launches right after S-Hawk or vice versa. Like, that combo is just super deadly. And remember that all of the opponents will have permanent -5 defense due to Jewelry Bonnie's Rumble ability. So I feel like this is a very succinct team that works really well. I feel like there are probably some characters you could switch out depending on the team scenario that you're coming up against. Like, Conus might be a really solid Rumble Rare recruit you could potentially use if you're going up against Mono Sai. But even with that, I feel like this team against Mono Sai would still work really well, all things considered. So we're on that second rotation now. We're about to get our specials back. Sabo's tanked a lot of damage here, and he had that shield on, it looked like, or he had some type of shield on. He did tank that hit from Shanks, which was pretty impressive, actually. And then Sabo comes in again, of course buffing our characters, giving knockback, attack, and special CT. Just took out Bonnie there, so we don't have to deal with her special reverse mechanics. Unfortunately, Bonnie did get knocked out, but you see S-Hawk coming in. Dude, S-Hawk is such a beast. We absolutely love this guy. And then Yamato is really annoying too, but Yamato from previous experiences was really annoying when you have like the lower hand, like when you're at disadvantage and Yamato uses that special, it just feels so bad. But if you have the upper hand, like especially in this case here where they had nothing left, it was a pretty convincing victory in my opinion, up against a pretty tough challenge difficulty boss. The second boss we're going up against today is the Avalo Pizarro Dex Powerhouse Squad. This one's also pretty tricky because Avalo Pizarro is actually a very good character, and on top of that, they've got some good characters on their side of the field. Kaido is a massive threat with his mass amount of damage that he's able to output, and if Roger is able to use his special before he gets knocked out, then that's a huge 60% health cut on us, which is a really big deal. And then annoyingly on the bench, they've got the Super Sugo Fest Big Mom, which if she comes in and launches her special, man, you better watch out. That halves stats and mass damage is a big problem, but here you go. Sabo launching his special first, hasted Mori to the top of the order. Mori uses his special ability so that now that we are basically having a much better time at dealing with our opponent's effects. They've got half stats, so we do more damage to them, but also we tank damage from them a lot easier. So it means that when we have a character like Luffy launch his special, or S-Hawk just goes crazy through defense anyway, but that they're actually tanked that very well. But when Luffy launches his special ability against them, the half stats, it actually makes a pretty big difference in terms of what he's capable of doing, especially if you don't have a lot of investments on Luffy. Like, that's such a nice combination to have, and you just see we got Pizarro out of there with Force Out, we got a couple knockouts, which is dope, but now there is Big Mom, so we do have to deal with her as well, so she is quite annoying. But we do have Bonnie, who hasn't launched her special yet, which is able to reverse the opponent's special, so hopefully just give us a little bit more time here. Unfortunately, Big Mom comes out of nowhere. I didn't even see her on the order. She comes up out of nowhere, knocks out our Bonnie, knocks out our Moria, both of which had their specials ready to go. So that was very unfortunate that happened. Would have been very nice to get Bonnie to launch right before Big Mom so we didn't have to deal with her special. But unfortunately, look, it is what it is. You have to deal with that in Rumble sometimes. So here we go. We've got our bench characters coming in now. We've got Dory, who's just a nice utility unit, does a little bit of damage and also can help us with special bind, which is pretty neat. Sabo just knocking out the Kaido. Just that 2.2 damage that goes through defense is no joke, and especially if you end up getting some dupes or investments into Sabo, man, that special is gonna go crazy, dude. It's gonna be pretty wild. But S-Hawk somehow is still alive. He's ready to use his special, and boom. I mean, from this point onwards, it's just GG. There's nothing the opponents can really do about it. Anyways, very convincing victory once again against a pretty tough boss. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and go up against the S-Hawk challenge. Now, the current block of the most recent Rumble season has actually concluded this morning, so we couldn't actually go up against like a normal slasher team that you would go up against normally, so that is a little unfortunate, but we were able to go up against this one, which I would say is like a relatively somewhat optimal team. Of course, V1 Doflamingo, or V2, yeah, it's V1 Dofi, technically isn't really an optimal choice for slashers these days, but it's still a character that can be a bit of a threat. But the rest of the squad is 100% characters you would normally typically see on a slasher team in Pirate Rumble these days, and we actually get through it. Surprisingly, we do get through it. I will say that this actually took me 2 attempts. The first attempt, they launched all of their specials before I could launch anything, and I just got auto-defeated, so that was a bit of a shame. But this time around, we were able to tank some hits, and we actually got through it. We were able to put some pressure on the opponent's side of the field, and things ended up going a little bit more positive for us. So even though they are outputting so much damage here, Moria got knocked out. Luckily was able to launch his special before that knockout. But you see that the Kinemon Denjiro character, they launched their special. Luckily they attack the characters in a way where none of them get knocked out, which is a big deal. So it means that they're able to stay alive. We can launch some specials against them. And we have Sabo here, damage through defense, like 12k damage is huge. Bonnie being able to be hasted to the top of the order, reverse the special of S-Hawk so we don't have to deal with the opposing S-Hawk special. Luffy coming in, ton of damage, and they already have so much HP lost that Luffy's special basically wave cleared the entire field, so it feels super good when you get stuff like that to occur. And then from this point onwards, the bench characters that they put for this team are not really that threatening. I guess the only real annoyance really could be if Hiyori uses her special to provide healing. That's the only thing I'm kind of concerned about, but once Hiyori gets knocked out, like, the rest can be kind of easy to deal with. A little bit of an annoyance here with Law because he does guarantee special bind characters for a short amount of time, so it just means that it takes a little longer to get that knockout against them. But all things considered, we got through this pretty well, and I was utterly impressed on how this team actually worked against it. And now moving on to our final team showcase of the video, where we go up against the Quick Hachi team. So this is the most recently released Quick Rumble Challenge difficulty boss you can go up against. And I mean, I probably wouldn't say this is an optimal team by any stretch. I mean, if you're going to run a quick team in Rumble, I feel like the mono quick slasher team or like quick driven are kind of like the way to go. So what we have here is a bit of like a mess in terms of the character synergies. I mean, yeah, they do kind of work. It's like a quick powerhouse kind of team, but it is a little bit of a strange one, especially with like Pizarro on the bench. You normally wouldn't do that. Even Smoothie's a pretty good character to put on the front line, all things considered. But either way, we see here that Moria once again was able to launch first, Bonnie reversing their specials, S-Hawk doing a ton of damage to them, getting a little squishy so that when Luffy eventually launches his special, we will be good to go. Sabo coming in, doing a ton of damage towards Kaido, knocking him out. Luffy is about to get his special, but I think he just missed. Yeah, he did just miss getting his special up, which would have been a huge deal. But, you know, it doesn't really matter. These guys don't really hit that hard. We were able to reverse their, not really reverse their special, well, reverse their special a little bit with Bonnie, which was kind of a big deal. But like the combo of S-Hawk and Luffy just destroy the opponent. And then the utility from Moria, the utility from Bonnie, and then Sabo doing his supporter stuff, giving everyone increased special CT to launch their specials faster, potential hasting, which is kind of cool as well, especially in the early game. And then the damage through defense, don't disregard that. It does a ton of damage, man. It's actually super, super cool. So, honestly, I think Sabo is a pretty good character in Pirate Rumble. I was really upset with how they kind of dealt with his normal abilities because he's just a little niche, but I feel like he actually has a place in Pirate Rumble on int-focused teams. He actually did really, really well today. Very, very impressed with what he was capable of doing, providing really great support and decent damage output against these opponents. So hopefully you enjoyed this video today. If you did, make sure to go ahead and leave a like, and if you want to stay up to date with all the content I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. On that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.